introduction. Good morning, everybody. This is George from EOS Paths, and today we are at the area of Perivolia, and my very good friend, Mr. K, aka as Hugh, is going to introduce us around his property about the area of Perivolia, which has a very long story. He's going to tell us how he got here and the story behind this area. The floor is yours.
Okay, so we first discovered this place in about 1980, many years ago, with my beautiful wife while hiking in the hills. And we were both absolutely carried away with its beauty. And we were lucky enough a couple of years later to purchase it and to start the long process of, which never ends, of rebuilding it and taking care of it and improving it. And that's been the story of our life, really. It has quite a history, the place.
How long ago does it date, this place? Do you know?
I think it goes back into the mists of time, really. There were probably many different structures here, many different religions. If you look at some of the olive trees, they're probably more than 1,000 years old.
More than 1,000 years old, but of course we have written stories that this place was very important because we are in a crossroad of a path that comes from the village and leads to Agia Theodoti and the rest of the island. Yeah?
That's right.
So many writers describe this place as...
Well, it was particularly fertile as well.
Exactly, that's why it's called...
Had a rich source coming down here, the stream, which obviously in the old days was probably a lot stronger, and now due to climate change is getting weaker all the time.
So let's have a look, talking about how old it is. We have a very old photo over here of the area of your house. You told us that you bought this place about 1980. So like 40 something years ago, but over here
45, yeah.
we have an old photo of like in the 1960.
Probably.
I think there is a small difference. You could see from the photo compared to your place. The only one of the things that it's still the same is the church that you're going to introduce us.
And the main structure.
And the main structure. But this area was always green, full of trees, correct?
Yep.
So shall we go down the path and show us around?
Let's go and have a look. And this was the main, as you said, look at these beautiful flagstones. This was the main avenue.
Main avenue.
Crossing the island.
And so you were telling me that there was a lot of traffic along this path. Why is that?
Oh, well, this was the main avenue between the one side of the island and the other.
And the other.
And it went through a lot of agricultural areas and where people had their sheep and herds, goats and herds of sheep. So, but there was so much traffic that nothing would have been growing here. So the moss and the lichen, which get very slippery in the winter, would not have existed. It would have been cleaned automatically.
But now, since there are no animals walking around, roaming around this path,
it gets quite dangerous in the winter to walk
exactly.
here.
But of course, there are some volunteers that they work every now and then. They help us maintain this path.
Yes, and we need more. Anyone listening?
So let's go inside the property and talk about the dry stone walls and the vegetation, the olive trees, how old they are. And we see here on this side that you're growing new trees. Is this true?
Yes, we purchased this piece of land quite recently, really. I was feeling sorry for it.
It was abandoned before you bought it?
It was abandoned, but people were cutting down the old olive trees for firewood and selling them to the pizza oven.
Really?
And so we bought this and we're trying to bring it back into
life.
It was just covered in bushes and wild growth.
Okay. But since you mentioned that people used to cut wood and selling it, I've read several stories that this island was exporting wood even to Santorini.
Well, yes.
You know that, huh?
Yes, it was. Probably had a lot more trees in the old days than it has now. And of course, during the occupation by the Germans in the Second World War, they cut down a tremendous number of trees and were exporting the wood apparently.
And one of the jobs that used to exist over here was a wood seller. They were gathering wood or small trees, and they were selling it to the open.
Oh, that's right, yes. Let me do that.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
So, let's keep the sheep outside, huh?
Yeah.
You never know. So,
Always leave gates as you find.
exactly, this is so true. Otherwise, the animals will rush in and eat everything, huh? And as the old people used to say, the most dangerous animal on this island is the goat. Because why? It used to climb all over the trees and eat everything. That's why the old olive trees used to grow. They used to grow them very tall. Correct? You told me this story as well.
That's true. Yeah. Whereas now they keep them low because there's no more goats. Yeah.
And they want to harvest.
And it's easier to pick the olives.
So, would you like to tell us a few things about the dry stone walls here?
Well, the dry stone walls. I mean, that was a constant activity, wasn't it? They used to get together, all the company, to go to one person's land for 1 week or 10
they used to
days.
work together, huh?
Then they go to the next person's land, and that's because it's a very heavy job and it needs a lot of cooperation.
And the whole island is covered with dry stone walls, and it's very important to visualize that whenever we see dry stone walls, this area used to be cultivated.
Exactly.
So every mountain is covered with dry stone walls, and it used to be cultivated. And do you remember what they used to cultivate in these areas?
Well, in the areas where they didn't have much water, they would have been growing winter wheat as food for the animals.
Okay.
Probably that's all they could do, because if you don't have irrigation, you rely on the rain from the...
Exactly.
They were also able, in the areas where they were able to keep... about these two young cypresses, which, in fact, you can't see that there's two because the one is in front of the other. But when I first came here, they were sort of this high, and now they're, 6 meters high, so it gives you an indication of that.
So you were telling us how old this property was, and we see in this photo the old cypress trees.
Yes.
And look at them over here right now, huh?
Yeah, they're still going strong.
Very strong.
Hopefully. I mean, despite the dryness. But you can see, for instance, these two, the one is in front of the other, young ones. When I first came here, they were probably 3 meters tall, and now they're 6 meters tall. So
after 40 years, they grew taller, and
they grew 3 meters.
3 meters, but they are ideally located because they're very close to the stream.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's have a look. You told me you want something to show me.
Oh, well, it's a beautiful time to see this whole place, because even if our lovely camera woman turns around, you can see the fullness of the olive trees. They're loaded with blossom, and it's a really nice time to see them. I mean, it's looking really...
It's end of April, by the way, and all the olive trees, as you could see, are blossoming right now. It's gonna be a good season. We had a very good, we had a lot of rain.
Well, we didn't have a lot of rain, but we had some rain.
We had some rain, compared to the previous years.
Yeah.
So what is this tree?
This is mulberry.
This is what?
Mulberry.
Mulberry, huh?
Black. Produces black mulberries.
And it has a lot of shade.
It's a beautiful tree for shade, yeah. And this is an old mulberry, which most of it we had to cut off, but it has produced another branch, which is great.
The old steps here.
This is the old cistern.
This is the old cistern. What's the story?
This used to fill up naturally from the river through little channels, which have now since been destroyed, really. But you can just about see in amongst the plants, you can see the little hole where they used to guide the water all the way from the stream, and they'd bring it here. It would fill up.
The cistern?
It was, of course, we had to actually repair it. And then they would water the main garden, which was all the levels below here, because they didn't have pumps in those days.
And did you have plastic pumps back then? How did you guide the water?
Well, we had pumps, of course, but I'm talking about in the old days when they first made it, they didn't.
Okay.
So they could only irrigate what was below the water level. So here we have our vegetable garden with
Organic?
totally organic, and we have just emptied the compost heap, one of the compost heaps, which is ready to be distributed. And then we have another one in preparation, and so it goes on. Actually now in the summer, because it's getting so hot, we don't grow so many things because it's getting difficult.
It needs a lot of water, which is very scarce.
Our main cultivation season now is between end of September and now. You can see now we have Brussels sprouts, kale, lettuce, spinach, radishes, tomatoes.
So let's have a look at the old photo that you mentioned to me earlier.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce it?
You were telling the story of this beautiful spot.
Yeah, this table again is something that we sort of repaired because it was fallen down, but we used the same stones and so on. And I don't think it's easy to see with your camera now, but there are some very old dates inscribed into the surface.
Yeah, there are some letters here and there.
Different people who sat here. And we know that this whole estate was owned by Spiridon Baletos.
Spiridon Baletos, who was one of the mayors back in the 1800s or before and during the revolution.
I don't know if he was a mayor, but he was active during the Greek Revolution.
Yes.
He was a man of letters. He was living in France, I think, but he used to come here. This was his estate. And apparently they used to roast goats in the corner there. There was a little fire, and they'd sit around here drinking wine, and then again the water from the stream was guided through these little channels so they could have a drink of water and they could also wash their glasses.
How convenient, eh?
Sit here, talk about the future.
And later this place was bought by another mayor of Ios, Mr. Lorenziades, who met the guests who visited this place later, like Vincent O'Connor.
Aha, yes, and Theodore Bent.
Theodore Bent.
That's right.
So again, we have to keep mentioning that this place has a very long story on this island. It is one of the places that was described in several books.
It was always a place of interest.
Exactly, because it is a crossroad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's a crossroads and because they made something beautiful out of it, and we're trying to maintain it.
Exactly, this is something worth mentioning, that you respected the environment and the architecture, and you use the natural resources over here, and you are restoring it to its original state.
Well, we're trying.
So let's have a look at the stream.
Yes. John, how's everything? Are you having a good day?
How's life?
Is everything all right?
So who's this?
Charlie.
Charlie?
This is Charlie. She's a female, almost total Labrador.
Almost total Labrador. She's a manager.
Labradorable.
Labradorable.
As you can see from her expression. Yes. And she loves love and food.
So you want us to show us?
Oh, yeah, this beautiful church. Yes, which is in the name of Saint
Spiridon.
Procopius.
Procopius, correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And when does it celebrate?
On the 8th of July.
8th of July, eh?
As long as it's not on a Sunday. then it'll be the 9th of July.
And everybody is invited during this.
Everybody is invited, and we have the wonderful Papa Stavros coming here to conduct the ceremony. 7:30 in the morning.
What time?
7:30.
7:30, yeah? So how old is this church? We already saw this.
Who knows how old these churches are? It must be hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years, and there is a stone over here. What's
There
this?
is a grave here, which is, it says Spiridon Baletus, but I don't think it's not actually the Spiridon Baletus who owned the property back then. It's, I was informed by one of his relatives that it's actually a cousin.
So it dates
who
back to
had
1830.
51.
51, correct.
Yeah, he was buried by his son Yanis.
Okay.
So we have a grave here to look after as well.
So it's a very, very ancient, very old place of worship.
I imagine so. So when we were restoring the whole thing, because we actually, we did find, that it was, you could see from the way it was built that it was very old.
Very old. Like the whole place around here.
It was probably an important spot.
And of course we have to mention that you allowed us to place these plexiglass signs with the QR code sign. You can find them in every church of the island. You can scan the QR code and read the story of every church, correct?
That's right, and it's very useful too. I think it's a great service to everyone.
Are you offering coffee?
Yeah, let's go and have
Coffee
a
on the
look.
house?
Sure. Let's go, guys. And biscuits, Flora.
Dog biscuits. So finally we made it to your house.
Yes.
And let's have a look at the wonderful view over here.
So this is where you get the best view of the whole piece of land, really, with its 100 and whatever it is, olive trees. All olive trees. 107.
And I'm very lucky to be introduced over here and share precious moments drinking coffee
Yeah.
in this area.
It's a great place. It's so peaceful.
And of course it takes a lot of work to maintain. Eh?
Yes, in fact, you find when you live here, you don't actually spend much time relaxing, because as soon as you look around, you go, oh, that needs fixing. Oh, that needs fixing. But it's great fun, and it keeps us fit.
Yes, that's to be honest. Going up and down all the time,
Yep,
you never get old.
that's true. It's good for the heart.
Exactly.